He was born into wealth, but trapped by fate. A boy who had never taken a step. Then came a street girl with nothing but courage. And she did what doctors couldn't. What miracle could a barefoot girl spark on a city sidewalk? What began on a city sidewalk became a lesson in faith, love, and the kind of miracle that doesn't come from money, but from the human heart. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments, what time is it, and where are you watching from? Let's start. The afternoon sun glared off the glass towers of Florence, as Daniel Morrow's black sedan rolled to a halt at a crowded intersection. In the back seat sat his 6-year-old son, Ethan, a pale boy in a crisp light blue suit, legs strapped gently into his wheelchair. His small hands pressed against the window, as he watched the world he could never touch. "Papa," he said softly, "can we open the window?" Daniel looked up from his phone. "Ethan, the air out there isn't clean. I just want to hear the sounds." He hesitated, but pressed the button anyway. The scent of roasted chestnuts and car exhaust rushed in. That's when Ethan saw her. A girl, dark-skinned, wiry, barefoot, spun in circles near the sidewalk, balancing an empty tin cup on her head. Her shirt was torn at the elbows, brown with dust, and yet she laughed like the world was hers. Coins clinked around her as strangers walked past. "Who's that?" Ethan asked. "A street kid," Daniel muttered, distracted. "Ignore her." But Ethan didn't. His eyes followed the girl until the light turned green, and the car pulled away. That night, Ethan wouldn't eat. He kept asking, "Why was she laughing if she's poor? Don't poor people get sad?" Daniel sighed. "You're too young to understand." "No, Papa," Ethan said. "You're too old to remember." The words stung more than they should have. For the next 3 days, Ethan begged to go back to that street. Daniel resisted, until the boy's doctor called to report that Ethan's muscles were weakening again. "He needs motivation," the doctor said. "Something emotional, something real. Otherwise, therapy means nothing." So Daniel gave in. Saturday morning, the sedan stopped again at the same intersection. Ethan's eyes lit up instantly. There she is. The girl was crouched near a bakery trash bin, tearing a croissant in half. She froze when she saw the shiny car door open. Ethan smiled shyly from his wheelchair. "Hi," he said. She looked around, suspicious. "You talking to me?" "Yes." He pointed to her half-eaten pastry. "Is it good?" She shrugged. "Tastes like yesterday." Daniel stepped out, uncomfortable. "Ethan, maybe." But Ethan cut him off. "Papa, please." Turning to the girl again, he asked, "What's your name?" "Maya." "I'm Ethan." She glanced at the wheelchair. "You can't walk?" He nodded, embarrassed. Without pity, she said, "That's fine. I can run for both of us." Daniel blinked, startled by her bluntness. Maya grinned. "Want to see?" She darted into the middle of the street, spinning, leaping, laughing. People stared. A policeman yelled. Daniel's heart stopped. "Get back here! You'll get hurt!" But Ethan's laughter filled the car for the first time in months. "She's flying, Papa!" Can a single moment change a life forever? When she came back, breathless and grinning, Ethan whispered, "I wish I could do that." Maya crouched beside him. "Maybe you can. You just forgot how." Daniel frowned. "Maya, don't say things like that. He can't." She looked up at him, fearless. "Can't or won't?" Daniel's jaw tightened. Doctors don't know everything," she said. "My mama used to say some legs stop moving because the heart gave up first." Her words hit deeper than she knew. Ethan reached toward her. "Will you teach me?" "Teach you what?" "How to not be scared." Maya smiled. "That I can do." Over the next week, Daniel found excuses to drive that way again. Each time, Maya appeared, sometimes barefoot, sometimes wearing the same torn brown shirt. She talked to Ethan through the window, telling stories about rooftops, rain puddles, and stars you could see if you slept outside. Daniel tried to pay her once, a folded note. She refused. "I'm not a clown," I'm his friend. Ethan adored her. His therapists noticed the difference immediately. His arms grew steadier, his posture stronger. One afternoon, when Daniel parked nearby, Maya shouted, "Let him out of the car!" Daniel hesitated. "He's not supposed to. Let him feel the ground." Her tone wasn't begging. It was commanding. Against his own logic, Daniel opened the door and carefully lifted Ethan out. The boy's legs trembled when they touched the pavement. "It's okay," Maya said, kneeling in front of him. "Don't look down. Look at me." "I can't," Ethan whispered. "Then don't. Just hold on." She turned around and crouched low. "Climb on." Daniel's heart raced. "Stop! You'll hurt yourself." But before he could finish, Ethan reached forward, small hands gripping Maya's shoulders. She laughed and said, "Tight grip, rich boy." And then she crawled slowly, steadily down the street, carrying him on her back. People stopped. A wheelchair sat behind them, empty under the sunlight. "Look, Papa!" Ethan shouted, voice breaking. "I'm not sitting." Daniel's knees gave out. He covered his mouth, eyes wide with disbelief. The crowd began to clap. Someone shouted, "He's walking!" Ethan wasn't walking. Not yet. But he was alive, laughing, breathing, moving. When Maya finally stopped, Ethan slid down gently, his feet brushing the ground. For a split second, his legs held him, just enough to make him gasp. He stood shaky, uneven, but standing. Daniel rushed forward, tears spilling down his face. "Ethan! Oh my God!" The boy looked up, grinning. "Papa, she did it. Maya did the magic." Maya wiped her nose with the back of her sleeve. "Not magic," she said. "Just belief." Daniel knelt, speechless. For the first time, his world, built on money, marble, and control, cracked open by a barefoot girl in torn clothes. People filmed, cheered, cried. But Maya didn't care. She just looked at Ethan, whispering, "Told you you could." Behind them, the empty wheelchair rolled slightly in the breeze, forgotten, like a relic of another life. The applause faded, but the moment didn't. For Daniel, it was as if the city itself had stopped breathing. His son, the boy doctors said would never stand, was on his feet, supported by nothing but will and a girl with torn sleeves. Ethan trembled, then laughed, the sound high and free. Daniel ran forward and caught him before he fell. He held him so tight that Ethan squealed. "Papa, I told you! I told you I could!" Daniel turned to Maya, still kneeling, panting, a scrape bleeding on her elbow. "How did you?" She cut him off, smiling. "I just showed him the ground wasn't as scary as it looks." He stared at her, the dirt on her cheeks, the hole in her shirt, the light in her eyes. "You risked yourself for him." Maya shrugged. "He risked more for me. He trusted me." The words hit harder than any doctor's report ever had. Daniel nodded slowly, helping Ethan back to his wheelchair. "Come with us," he said suddenly. "Please, at least let me buy you food." She looked uncertain. "I don't need please," he repeated, softer. "For me?" At a small restaurant nearby, Maya ate like someone who hadn't in days. Daniel watched quietly as Ethan spoke nonstop, hands flailing in excitement. "She ran, Papa, and then I felt like my legs remembered something. It was like they woke up." Daniel smiled faintly, then turned to Maya. "Where do you live?" She froze mid-bite. "Nowhere." He frowned. "What about your parents?" "My mama died 2 winters ago. Heart trouble. Papa left before that." Daniel's throat tightened. "And since then?" She shrugged. "The street feeds who earns it. I'm good at surviving." Ethan reached across the table, touching her hand. "You're good at making people happy, too." She smiled weakly. "Only if they listen." Daniel leaned back, silent. Guilt gnawed at him. He had spent millions searching for cures, machines, surgeries, sterile rooms. Yet the answer had come from a child who owned nothing but courage. Later that evening, Daniel brought Maya and Ethan to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor blinked when Ethan walked 3 steps between parallel bars. Impossible, he muttered. There's no medical explanation. His legs show activity we've never seen before. Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe you just never gave him a reason. Ethan looked at Maya. She's my reason. The doctor shook his head, speechless. Whatever you did, young lady, don't stop. Over the next few weeks, Maya became part of their routine. She visited daily, helping Ethan practice standing, then taking him outside to race clouds, as she called it. Daniel watched from benches, realizing how much he'd missed, how much money had distracted him from simple, living joy. But one morning, Maya didn't show up. Ethan waited an hour, then 2. By afternoon, Daniel drove through the city, searching every corner they'd met. Finally, near an alley behind the bakery, he found her huddled under a cardboard sheet, coughing violently. Maya! He shouted, kneeling beside her. She looked up weakly. Did he stand again? Yes, Daniel said, lifting her into his arms. He walked. Her lips curved into a tired smile. Told you he just needed to believe. He carried her to his car, heart pounding. In the hospital, doctors diagnosed severe bronchitis. Years of cold nights and malnutrition had worn her thin. She needed rest, warmth, and steady care. Daniel stayed beside her bed that night, watching her breathe through the oxygen mask. For the first time in years, he prayed, not for success or strength, but for a child who wasn't his, yet had saved the one who was. Days passed. Maya slowly recovered, her laughter returning piece by piece. Ethan visited daily, bringing small drawings of them together, Maya with angel wings, Ethan standing beside her. One afternoon, Daniel sat with her, hands folded. When you're better, would you like to stay with us for a while? We have space. You'd have your own room. Her eyes widened. With a bed? He nodded. And books, and school if you want. She hesitated. You don't have to do that. I know, Daniel said quietly. But I want to. She blinked rapidly, holding back tears. Then maybe. Yeah. For a while. Months later, Florence saw a different sight. A boy in a blue suit walking hand in hand with a barefoot girl, now wearing new shoes. Both laughing as they crossed the same street where they'd first met. Behind them, Daniel followed, no longer the untouchable businessman, but a father learning what love actually looked like. Ethan's therapy reports astonished the doctors. His muscles had strengthened. His coordination rebuilt itself. But Daniel didn't care about the science anymore. He cared about the smile on his son's face, the sound of Maya's laughter echoing through their once silent home. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Ethan said, Papa, I think walking isn't just with legs. It's with the heart. Daniel nodded. Then she taught us both to walk. A year later, Maya stood on a school stage, dressed neatly in uniform, reading a short essay. Daniel and Ethan sat in the front row. My story, she began, is not about pity. It's about believing in what people call impossible. When you believe for someone else, it changes you, too. The crowd applauded. Daniel wiped his eyes discreetly. Ethan whispered, She's still magic. Daniel smiled. No, son. She's real, and that's even better. After the ceremony, Maya ran toward them, her braids bouncing, laughter breaking the air like sunlight through clouds. Ethan met her halfway, running, not perfectly, but not rolling. Daniel closed his eyes, whispering, Thank you, whoever you are up there. Thank you for sending her to us. Winter came quietly to Florence that year. The days grew short, the air colder, and life inside the Morrow home began to feel warm again. Ethan spent most mornings practicing his balance while Maya sat nearby, reading her new school books aloud to him. Sometimes she mispronounced words, and he'd laugh. Sometimes she'd throw a pillow at him and laugh harder. Daniel often stood in the doorway watching them, the millionaire and the orphan, now both healed in ways no doctor could measure. Papa, Ethan said one morning as he took another careful step. You think Maya will stay forever? Daniel looked at the girl bent over her notebook, hair falling into her face. I hope she'll stay as long as she wants. Maya didn't look up. You don't get rid of me that easy, boss man, she teased, and Ethan giggled so hard he nearly fell over. By spring, the three of them had fallen into a rhythm that felt almost like family. Maya went to school in the mornings. Daniel worked from home more often, and Ethan's laughter filled the house. But deep down, Daniel knew he couldn't keep Maya's past hidden forever. One evening, he found her sitting outside on the balcony, staring at the city lights. Don't you miss anyone? He asked gently. She shrugged. Sometimes I see people with moms and dads, and I think maybe mine are watching from somewhere. But then I remember. She smiled faintly. I already got a family now. Daniel's chest tightened. You do? He said softly. You really do. The next day, he took both children to the small cemetery on Via Bianca. He placed flowers on his late wife's grave, the woman Ethan never got to know. This is your mama, Daniel whispered to his son. Ethan touched the headstone with careful fingers. Do you think she'd like Maya? Daniel smiled through tears. I think she sent her. Maya stood quietly a few steps back, hands clasped. For the first time in years, she wasn't praying for survival. She was praying for peace. Weeks later, Maya's health improved completely. Her cheeks filled out. Her eyes glowed brighter. And the cough that once kept her up vanished. She began to dream again, about finishing school, about maybe becoming a nurse. Ethan's walking improved, too. Every day, he made it a little farther before needing support. One evening, Daniel watched as the two of them raced down the garden path, their laughter echoing against the orange dusk. Maya won. Of course, she always did. When they came back, breathless and grinning, Ethan blurted, Papa, can she stay forever? Daniel laughed. I think forever just started. But life, as always, carried its own lessons. That summer, Maya's old social worker tracked her down through the school system. When she visited, Daniel feared she might take Maya away. Instead, the woman smiled kindly. We only came to thank you, Mr. Morrow. What you did for her, it saved a child the city forgot. Daniel looked at Maya, who stood proudly in her clean uniform. No, he said quietly. She saved us. The woman nodded. Then maybe you saved each other. Years passed. The world outside kept spinning, new businesses, new inventions, new headlines. But inside the Morrow home, life stayed simple. Ethan grew taller, walking without a cane. Maya became top of her class, fierce and compassionate. On Ethan's 10th birthday, Daniel brought out a small box. Inside was a silver bracelet engraved with 2 words. Keep believing. He clasped it around Maya's wrist. You gave us faith when we had none. Don't ever lose yours. She smiled, tears glistening. You really think I'll ever forget? Ethan grabbed her hand. You're my sister now. Even if we don't look the same. Maya laughed. That's the best part. One evening, years later, when both children were nearly grown, Daniel sat alone on the same street where it had all begun. The city was noisier now, brighter. The spot where the wheelchair once stood had long since changed, but he could still see it in his mind. He remembered the sound of Ethan's laugh, Maya's steady voice, the crowd's applause. It felt like another lifetime. When he looked up, he saw 2 figures walking toward him, Maya and Ethan, taller now, side by side, laughing just like before. Daniel stood, unable to hide his tears. You two never stopped proving me wrong. Maya hugged him first. That's because you taught us how to walk with our hearts, Ethan added softly. And she taught us not to be afraid of falling. The 3 of them stood there for a long time, the same city lights flickering above. Proof that miracles aren't always loud. Sometimes they're just 2 children and a man who finally learned what it means to stand. If this story touched your heart, hit the like button, share it, and tell us where you're watching from. Sometimes the smallest hands lift the heaviest lives. Subscribe for more grounded, emotional stories that remind us real miracles aren't magic. They're the moments when kindness makes someone walk again.